comparison of technologies for quantification of mRNA. It was held this morning, it was 10, and we are now ready for the defense of the thesis. The title of the thesis, you can see it here, it should be according to my papers. Integrative Systems Biology approaches for analyzing high throughput data. Applications to modeling of gene regulatory networks. So the main supervisor has been Associate Professor Nada Bar, and Professor Sigurd Skogestad, also from Chemical Engineering, has been co-supervisor. So first something about the procedure this afternoon. First the candidate, which can choose his work, and then directly after that, the first opponent will take the floor, or where I'm standing now, and then we have a break of 5 to 10 minutes for a leg stretch before the second opponent takes his stand after the break. And then I will open for the committee again by the end of the session if I have any questions. Potentially also from the third opponent, Hans Preisig, which has been the administrator of the also Professor in the Chemical Engineering department. So, if there are any in the audience who wants to ask questions after this, they will need to sign on my list during the break between the first and second one. We are now ready? Yeah? Ready in a rush? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation again to the committee and to the audience. Very good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to my PhD presentation. And the title of my thesis is Integrative Systems Biology Approaches for Analyzing the Application to Modeling of Gene Regulatory Networks. And these are the chapters available in my thesis. First chapter is data introduction to the systems biology and some of the high-throughput methods, microRNA, and different reconstruction approaches are presented in chapter 1. And then the chapter 2 and 3 present the methodological approaches to reconstruct these regulatory networks. And then the chapters 4, 5, 6 and 7 present the integrative frameworks for analyzing this high-throughput data. And then the chapter 8 present the short review of metabolic applications in gastric cancer. And then the chapter 9 present the overall conclusions of this thesis and some guidelines for the future work of this thesis. So, and this is my presentation outline. I am not presenting the results from the chapter 7 and 8, as the chapter 7 is very similar to the chapter 6, except that the data is different system. Data is from a different system. And then the chapter 8 is review article, that is a different type of high-throughput data networking. And I am not presenting any results from the chapter 8 also. So let's start with the introduction. So as my title of my thesis says, Systems Biology Approaches. So what is systems biology? Systems biology is the study of living organisms at systems level rather than studying at its individual components. And it was introduced in early 1990s or late 1980s. And it has roots from the different sciences, so it is highly interdisciplinary science. And that's why you will have lots of definitions for this systems biology term. And according to Kitano, it says that understanding the complex biological systems require the integration of both experimental and the computational research, or in other words, in a systems biology approach. And now let's take a look at what are the components present in this systems biology approach. So mainly it contains 3 components: experiments, modeling, analysis, and it will be solved in iterative cycles. And in each component there are sub-components. So for example, in the experiments, we will first generate our hypothesis about the system, and then we will conduct the experiments, and then we will get the data, and then we will start the modeling of this system. So in systems biology approach will be solved in integrative cycles. It's not just a one cycle. It will be continuously improving the model, understanding of the system. So we will conduct the repetitive of these three components. And my thesis is mainly focused on gene regulatory networks. So let's take the stages in this gene expression process. And this process actually I have already explained in the morning session. So when the system is partnered with the system, this signal transmits through the different protein kinases, metabolites, and finally reaches to the transcription factors, so that these transcription factors will move from the cytoplasm to the nucleus, and where it binds to the genes or the DNA, so that these DNA molecules will be get transferred into the mRNA molecules, and then we will measure this expression as a system's response. And then these genes will be converted into the proteins, and these proteins will be converted into active proteins or the metabolites. Those are like a specific system's response. So here in my thesis I am using mostly the data generated using the microarray technology, and in the morning session I have already explained the principles of this microarray technology. And the typical expression data generated from this microarray technology looks like this. So genes are the mRNAs are aligned towards the rows, and the time points are the samples at different conditions are aligned towards the columns. And each element in this matrix represents the expression value of the particular gene at the particular treatment or condition. So, and in my thesis I am using network component analysis as a central modeling tool in most of my chapters. So I will briefly introduce this approach initially so that it will be easy to follow the results in the coming slides. So network component analysis is a decomposition method similar to the other decomposition methods as principal component analysis (PCA), singular value decomposition (SPD), and the independent component analysis (ICA). So the main difference between this approach and the other decomposition methods is that with this approach you can incorporate the system's knowledge in terms of structural constraints. So let's take a close look at this approach. So here we have a matrix E, and we want to decompose this into a matrix A and P. So here matrix E represents the expression data generated using the microarray or the RNA sequencing technologies, and this A matrix represents the structural constraints about the system. And then this P matrix is a complete output from this decomposition, and it represents the transcription factor activity levels of the system. So if you take a overall view of this approach, so this is the expression data generated from the DNA material data. This is the known systems information in terms of networks. We will convert this network into an adjacency matrix or the connectivity matrix. That is the initial A in the decomposition, and then we will obtain the P matrix. That is the activity levels of the transcription factors present in the system, along with their connectivity trends to their target genes. So in order to make sure that this decomposition is unique, we need to satisfy certain conditions. There are three conditions which need to be satisfied termed as NCA criteria. And the first condition says that connectivity matrix of A should have a full column rank. And then the second condition says that each column in the A matrix should have at least L-1 zeros. Here L represents the number of columns or the number of transcription factors in the system. And then the third condition says that the matrix P should have a full row rank. matrix P is an output, so that we cannot take this condition prior to the decomposition. We will take this condition once the decomposition is finished or solved. So these are the examples of NCA compliant network. That is this network satisfies all three conditions, and this is an example of NCA non-compliant network. So if you take the connectivity matrix for this network, so here the column 3 has only 2 zeros, but the criteria 2 says that it should contain at least L minus 1 zeros. Here the columns are 4, so 4 minus 1, it should contain at least 3 zeros. So it is not satisfying the criteria 2, so that you cannot include this transient factor in the decomposition. These are some examples what we can solve this NCA and what we cannot solve this NCA proposal. And then once these conditions are satisfied, we will try to minimize this objective function E minus AP, and we will solve the A and B in a iterative manner, minimizing the error reconstruction to be the lowest as possible. So now I will present the noise removal algorithm for the time series microarray data. As we discussed in the morning session, that the data generated from the microarray data always contains noise. So separation of these true biological signals from this noisy data is always a challenging task, and a lot of methods and models are available somehow to remove this noise in the data. And here I am presenting the algorithm to remove the noise. This algorithm is very specific to the data generated using the stimuli response experiments, because for this type of experiments we have some prior knowledge about the system. So the gene expression profiles generated using these systems will often follow two kinds of responses. That is, the genes will have an impulse response, that is peak activation or repression at only 1 or 2 time points, or it will have continuously increasing the expression values or the continuously decreasing the expression values. So we approximated these expression patterns with Fourier series functions to the original noisy microarray data. And here we considered only the Fourier first order and the second order series. And if these two functions are failing to fit the data, and we try to fit with the smoothing span. Let's take a look at the results. So here the blue line represents the original noisy data from the microarrays, and then the dotted black line represents the fitted approximations to this noisy data. So it tries to remove the spikes which are unexpected, maybe the result of experimental noise or noise in the sample preparation itself, some kind of noise. So with this approach we can eliminate these unexpected spikes from the microarray data. And then we check whether the fitting to this Fourier series function is helping the modeling tools or not. So we tried here 3 modeling tools: network component analysis, principal component analysis, and then the clustering. Here I am presenting the clustering results and the principal component analysis results. So here for the evaluation purpose we consider the 2 conditions: tightness within the cluster, that represents here how tightly the members in each cluster are grouped, and it should be minimum. And the other criteria we consider is the separation between the cluster, and it should be maximum as possible to get the good separation. So here we apply the K-means clustering to the original noisy data, and then the noise treated data or approximated data with the Fourier series. So here blue line represents the noisy data, and the red line represents the noise treated data. And here, actually, big problem with the K-means clustering is that to find the optimal number of clusters in the data. So we consider the range of clusters. Range ranging from 3 to 15 clusters, and in all the cases, the A, that is the tightness within the cluster, is minimum compared to the original noisy data. You can see. So here we consider the two different systems, HRG and EGF. For both systems, cricket data is giving much better result than the original noisy data, and the bottom plots present the B value, that is the separation between the clusters. It should be maximum as possible, and you can see the reverse trend here. It has the maximum values compared to this original noisy data. So and then we applied the same two data sets on the PCA. So principal component analysis is also a data decomposition method. By keeping achieving the maximum variance with very few variables called the principal components. So here we compare the variance achieved with each principal component from the noisy data and the noise treated data. So you can see with the noise treated data we are achieving at least 6 to 8% more variance with only two components. So that means approximating this gene exponent profile to the known function forms will eliminate the noise present in the data, and then it improves the performance of the modeling tools. Now I am moving on to the iterative subnetwork component analysis. It is an extension to the existing network component analysis. It overcomes the some of the limitations in this original network component analysis approach. So let's take a look at what are the issues with this current NCA approach. So it has three conditions which are very strict to reconstruct the larger network. The common procedure employed to satisfy these three criteria are the pruning procedure. That is, the transcription factors which are incompatible with the other transcription factors present in the network will be simply removed along with their target genes connectivity. So it reduces the network size drastically, and in addition to that, it removes the essential biological properties of redundancy and cooperativity. And even though we are having a lot of information about the system, we are unable to use that information in developing the model. So in our iterative subnetwork component analysis, instead of removing the transcription factors which are incompatible with the other transcription factors, in satisfying those criteria, we will separate those transcription factors into a second network. Here we call it as a subnetwork. So, and then we will solve these two subnetworks iteratively in a predict and update manner. And during each iteration, we will subtract the common components present in the two subnetworks. So it will be more clear in the coming slides. So that we can reconstruct the larger networks compared to the original NC approach. So this is the essential problem formulation. We have the initial network. That network will not satisfy all three conditions. So that we will decompose this two network into two subnetworks. Each subnetwork satisfies the NC criteria. So and then each subnetwork will divide the unique components and the common components between the two networks. So E will be divided into unique and the common components. And similarly, the network connectivity network also will be decomposed into two parts, unique components and the common components. You see the difference here, the common component between the two networks will be different for the connectivity matrix. And in the similar way, we will also have unique components only, because we are not considering in this case the transcription factors in the common component. So P will have only the unique components, because P represents only the transcription factors. So those are uniquely present in the two networks. So and then we will solve the individual subnetworks separately using any standard NC algorithms. And once these subnetworks are solved, we will reconstruct we will rearrange these components from the two subnetworks to make the complete A matrix and the P matrix. and then we will compute the error. So during the next iteration, we will update the expression values in the E matrix corresponding to the common components. Here EC represents the common components. Here we will subtract the common pieces contribution from the other network, because these are shared between the two networks. For the second network, we will subtract the common contributions from the subnetwork one, and then we will solve these two networks again, and then we will calculate the error. And if the error difference between the two iterations is less than the predefined threshold, we will stop and we will get over the bigger network components. And these are some of the results using this ECNC approach. So we studied 3 case studies. I am presenting here the only 2 case studies. So here in this case study, we took an incomplete network. We divided this network into 2 subnetworks with only T shared between the 2 networks, and we applied the ECNC approach to solve this network using the 3 different NCA algorithms, namely the GNCR, fast NCA, and road NCA. And then we found that error intersection with the fast NCA seems to be the most appropriate or most accurate compared to the GNCR and fast NCA. Road NCA. But GNCR is also very close enough to the fast NCA. These are the mean error over the 100 different simulations, and these are the error distributions from these 100 simulations. Here also you can see fast NCA and GNCR are having a very low error. More number of simulations are resulting in low error compared to the road NCA. And here this is the error convergence rate of this ECNC approach using these 3 algorithms. So we have very sharp convergence rate at the very start of the iterations, around 1 to 5, and then it is slowly decreasing after the 5th iteration. So and then we applied this ECNC approach on real microarray data. Here also we generated 100 network configuration from the initial static TFPG data downloaded from the databases. And then we try to compare the network sizes, how big we can reconstruct using the any standard algorithm, GNCR and then the ECNC. And you can see network size reconstructed by the ECNC is relatively larger than the GNCR in terms of either TCs or constitution factors or interaction. So we tested the 2 different data sets, EGF and HRG, and in both cases ECNC can able to reconstruct larger networks. And then these are the results from the reconstruction errors. So in this case, we considered the 2 different algorithms, road NCA and GNCR, and you can see the results from the road NCR having less mean error compared to the GNCR. So that means for the small networks, fast NCA and the GNCR are performing better, and for the large networks the microarray data sets, road NCA is performing better compared to the other 2. And these are the error convergence rates. In addition to these things, we tested the ECNC content properties as a function of subtracting this common keys conflict with some factor. And this factor also has a lot of significance in this convergence of this ECNC approach. And we tested the different combinations, and we found that the delta value of 0.5 at the iteration 1 and the delta value of 1 at the other iteration gives the lowest error and the smooth conversions. Now I am moving to the dynamics of the gene regulated network, dynamics of the code. we initially identified the whole specific constitution from the literature, and due to the lack of connectivity information for this system, we defined our initial connectivity matrix A using the co-expression network analysis. And then the final NCA model identified around 30 code specific years. So these are the computed activity profiles along with gene expression profiles, and some transcription factors are very well correlated between the activity levels and the expression profiles. Maybe there is a chance of autoregulation for those transcription factors which are having high correlation between this activity and the expression. And then based on this computed activity profiles, we identified the global ecotype transcription factors and specific unique transcription factors. So, and lots of transcription factors are global. That means it has involved in more than one ecotype, and very few transcription factors are involved in only one ecotype.